The night was supposed to crown her success, yet it began with a sound so small it shattered everything. The soft, unforgiving rip of silk in the cold air outside the Gala. Beneath the blinding flashes of cameras and the golden lights of the hotel entrance, the CEO stood frozen, her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and despair, as the deep red gown she had trusted with her dignity split open like a secret exposed. In that instant, the empire she had built, the power she carried, and the confidence she wore so effortlessly, all dissolved into one unbearable truth. She was human, vulnerable, and on the verge of tears. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment to pause. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us why compassion still matters in a world that often forgets. She had arrived alone, as she always did. Years of boardrooms and battles had taught her not to rely on anyone to stand beside her. As the youngest female CEO in her industry, every step she took was watched, measured, judged. The Gala was more than an event. It was a battlefield dressed in diamonds. Tonight, donors, investors, and rivals would see her not just as a leader, but as a symbol. The gown had been chosen carefully, a deep crimson that spoke of strength and elegance, a quiet defiance against expectations. But silk, like pride, can be fragile. One careless step on the hem as she exited the car, one sharp pull, and everything unraveled. Her hands moved instinctively to cover the tear, fingers trembling as she felt the cool night air against her skin. The cameras did not stop. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a sudden wind. In her mind, memories collided. Years of sacrifice, missed birthdays, sleepless nights, the loneliness she never allowed herself to acknowledge. She had risen by never showing weakness, and now weakness was on full display. Tears welled, uninvited and unstoppable, blurring the lights into streaks of gold and white. What no one noticed at first was the man standing just beyond the velvet rope. He was not dressed for a gala. His coat was worn, his shoes practical, his posture cautious. He was there because his job demanded it. Part of the maintenance crew contracted to handle last-minute fixes before the event began. A single father with calloused hands and a life shaped by responsibility rather than ambition, he had learned to stay invisible. Life had taught him that attention rarely brought kindness. But when he saw her standing there, unraveling in silence, something stirred that had nothing to do with wealth or status. He saw not a CEO, not a headline, but a woman cornered by circumstance, fighting to breathe beneath the weight of expectation. He remembered other moments, quieter ones, when his own world had torn without warning. The day his wife left, leaving behind a toddler and an apology written on a scrap of paper. The nights he sat on the kitchen floor mending his son's torn backpack with borrowed thread, hoping love could make up for what money could not. Fixing things had become his language of survival. As security shifted nervously and assistants scrambled without solutions, he stepped forward. There was no grand plan, no certainty it would work. He only knew that standing still felt wrong. In his pocket, where he usually kept spare screws and tape, were a small pair of scissors, dulled from years of use. He moved with care, lifting his hand slowly so as not to startle her further. His presence calm, grounded, human. The world seemed to hold its breath as he knelt slightly, eyes focused not on her tears but on the fabric that had betrayed her. Time stretched thin as he worked. The tear could not be undone, but it could be transformed. He adjusted the cut, reshaping the rip into something intentional, something that looked designed rather than destroyed. His hands were steady, guided by countless repairs done under pressure, by the quiet patience learned from bedtime stories and scraped knees. Snow began to fall lightly, dusting the red carpet in white, as if the night itself wished to soften the moment. She felt it before she understood it, the shift from panic to possibility. The cold air no longer burned against her skin. The whispers faded into background noise. She looked down and saw not ruin, but resilience. The gown altered into a bold, graceful line that spoke of survival rather than shame. The tears spilled freely then, not from humiliation, but from relief so deep it ached. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to be helped. When he finished, he stepped back without seeking recognition. He did not wait for applause or thanks. He simply nodded once, a small acknowledgement of shared humanity, and retreated toward the shadows. The cameras, ever hungry, turned their attention back to the spectacle, missing the quiet heroism that had just unfolded. She stood taller now, shoulders squared not by pride, but by gratitude. As she walked into the gala, the crowd rose, mistaking her composure for unshakable confidence, unaware that it had been stitched together by a stranger's kindness. Inside, the evening unfolded as planned. Speeches were made, donations pledged, hands shaken. Yet something had changed within her. The applause felt different, less intoxicating, more hollow. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the man with the scissors, to the simplicity of his act. She realized how rarely she noticed the people who kept her world running, how often she mistook independence for strength. The tear in her gown had exposed a deeper fracture, one she could no longer ignore. Days later, she searched for him. It was not easy. He had not left his name, only a quiet impression. When she finally found him through the event staff, he was surprised, even uncomfortable, unsure why someone like her would want to speak to someone like him. She learned about his son, about the nights spent balancing work and parenthood, about dreams deferred not by lack of talent but by lack of opportunity. She listened, truly listened, and in doing so felt something heal within herself. What followed was not a fairy tale, but a series of deliberate choices. She funded scholarships through the company, not as charity, but as investment in unseen potential. She restructured contracts to ensure fair wages for workers like him. And quietly, without press releases or ceremonies, she offered him a chance, training, stability, a future that did not require constant sacrifice. He accepted not out of gratitude alone, but out of pride, wanting to build something lasting for his son. The story spread eventually, as stories like this always do. Headlines spoke of a CEO humbled by a torn gown, of a single father whose quick thinking saved the night. But the truth was deeper and softer than any article could capture. It was about two lives intersecting for a single moment, altering the course of both. It was about how vulnerability can invite connection, and how the smallest acts can echo louder than applause. Years later, when she looked at photographs from that night, she no longer saw embarrassment. She saw a beginning. The gown, now preserved in her office, was a reminder that perfection is an illusion, and that strength often arrives disguised as help. For him, the scissors remained in his pocket for a long time, a symbol of the night he stepped forward instead of staying invisible. If this story touched something inside you, if it reminded you of a moment when kindness changed your path or someone else's, please take a second to engage with this video. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions help stories like this reach hearts that need them. And before we end, I have a special request. Please comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. Because somewhere tonight, someone is standing on the edge of their own unraveling, and your engagement might be the quiet reminder they need that help can come from the most unexpected hands.